Hi, my name is Will Folds. I'm final year studying BSc Honours Agriculture with Crop Management. My HRP title is The Effect of Burial Depth on the Germination and Establishment of Perennial and Italian Ryegrass. I chose that title because ryegrass is becoming a big problem at home on the family farm in Suffolk, particularly on the medium and light soils. We're starting to find resistance coming in, so we are looking more at cultural methods of control, because it's getting to the stage now where some of the neighbouring farmers who also have a problem with it are whole cropping headlands, spraying off large areas of field just because of this problematic grassweed. So I don't want our farm to get to that stage, so I would like to do the research now and find a cultural control method or another weapon in the arsenal, as it were, for controlling this problematic weed. My HRP consisted of 3 experiments. The first was a glasshouse experiment based in here. It was Italian and perennial ryegrass sown at 0, 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10 centimetres. And that was used to establish at what depth ryegrass would both germinate and emerge. Following the results from that, it was found that ryegrass was still emerging at 10 centimetres. So we decided to repeat the experiment, going from 0 to 20 centimetres, to see if below 10 centimetres we could prevent emergence or prevent germination, and what the effect was of burying it that little bit deeper. The third experiment was a field experiment that consisted of Italian and perennial ryegrasses once again being sown, but just to the surface. Following that, there was then 4 different cultivation methods applied. The first being no tillage, the second being ploughed to 15 centimetres, the third being ploughed to 15 centimetres followed by a tine harrow at 5 centimetres, and then the fourth was only the tine harrow at 5 centimetres to replicate a minimum tillage approach. The results from my first trial was that below 6 centimetres germination and emergence seemed to be inhibited, so ideally above 6 centimetres where you want to be cultivating to get your stale seed beds and promote germination. In the second experiment, that was backed up fairly well by depths below 5 centimetres having greatly reduced emergence, and it was also found that the surface moisture had a big influence on germination. A moist soil surface increased the number of germinated seeds we saw, whereas a dry soil surface was found to inhibit germination and the seeds just sat there and didn't do anything, which was quite beneficial and could be useful in the real world relating to cultivation timings and soil conditions when you want to cultivate. The field trial showed that, as expected, ploughing greatly reduced emergence to approximately 5% of the number of seeds sown actually emerging. It was also found that no tillage or very slight burial was the greatest emergence, which would be ideal in your stale seedbed situations. And then cultivations to around 5 centimetres did reduce emergence compared to those of the no tillage system. However, a large increase was still seen over the plough-based system, suggesting that your cultivations to 5 centimetres would be optimum for promoting a stale seedbed, promoting growth, and giving you the option to apply broadleaf herbicide and control the weeds. The ability to tailor your HRP to what you want to do, I think it's really beneficial, because you aren't stuck to what's already been put forward to you. You can go out, tailor it to whatever you want to do, really. There's a wide range of tutors who can support you in a wide range of aspects of agriculture.
I'm Will Hitchcock and I'm on Agriculture with Mechanisation, and I'm in my 4th year at Harper. My HRP title is quantifying the benefits of a pre-cleaning chaser system on sugar beet crop recovery, which is all about seeing if a chaser is going to clean sugar beet better than a conventional trailer does. So chasers are new to the industry. They've been used for grain for years, but in sugar beet they've only just sort of come around the last few years. And I noticed, my personal observation was that when they unload they have a cleaning element. Dirt is a massive part of the industry. It costs the industry about £2.5 million a year. So if you can lower dirt tears with a chaser, all well and good, but no one's actually ever quantified the level of cleaning that they perform. So I thought I would set up an experiment at home using a traction trailer and a chaser and see if there was any difference in dirt tears and whether that benefited crop recovery, which is basically minimising sugar loss and getting as much crop into the factory as possible. Even the best growers only get 50 to 70% of their optimum yield. That's through harvest losses, storage losses, high dirt tears. So, if I could find out where those losses are occurring and pinpoint exact points and benefit the industry, all well and good. So the trial was a field trial, full commercial scale. It wasn't in the glasshouse or anything like that. It just wouldn't work. So I set the trial up at home. I chose a 40-acre field and we lifted half of the field using the chaser, and the other half was just carted with a conventional trailer into two separate clamps. And I monitored the clamp the beet was stored for a month, and over the course of the month I collected dirt tear samples, weight loss samples, and also clamp temperature, because the theory has already been proven that high dirt tears cause high clamp temperatures, which cause the roots to respire more and you lose more weight like that. So, and you obviously want as much weight in the factory as possible. So yeah, two completely different clamps were set up, and then from there I managed to collect some data. Unfortunately, no significant difference was found between using the chaser or a traction trailer, but there has been some interesting, I've proven the industry theories, which is good about high dirt tears and temperature. But I've also created some interesting spatial heat maps to show where the variation in temperature was. The sugar beet that were in the clamp the longest actually lost the most weight, which is interesting and matches what the experts say, so that's good. I think I need to run the experiment again, possibly in wetter conditions when dirt tears are higher, to see if I can actually prove what I'm trying to prove. So yeah, there's a lot of improvements I need to make to my experiment if I'm going to do it again, but no, it's just been really interesting to talk to industry experts. I've had some good contacts through my dissertation tutor and also the sugar beet fieldsman at home. So yeah, even if I've not proved anything, it's been a good experience. To do a project that I'm interested in has been really good. I'm going to head home once I graduate, hopefully, and get involved in the business at home. And if I can take the sugar beet operation forward by improving the efficiencies, using the chaser to our advantage, then that's, it's really good. I wish I'd proven something more important, but I think there's opportunities in the future to do more work on it, and BBRO would like to possibly use the farm at home as part of their research. So yeah, it has been useful for future contacts. To have industry experts actually interested in what I'm doing at my level has been really, really good. I never expected they would decide to help me or want to help me. My dissertation tutor, I've been quite lucky there because he's on the board at BBRO. So yeah, no, it's just been really good to get to know those people for the future and just get some information from my literature review through them. It's just scary that 50 to 70% of the crop, that is what we're getting at the moment. There's, the worst growers out there just not achieving their maximum potential at all. So if I can, I would like to have proven something to help that. But yeah, it's just been really good to be in such an exciting industry and try and push it forward.
I am Amy Barnes and I'm studying agriculture with animal science. I was investigating the use of salivary antibodies compared to fecal egg counts to assess a worm challenge in sheep. specifically looking at the repeatability of the test and also to see if you selectively bred for that trait, what effect that would have on growth rates. I chose my HRP because I love sheep. I'm interested in sort of the health side of things, and I wanted to do something that was sort of a bit more industry focused and something that could be really valuable in the future. For my HRP, most of it was secondary data because the ewe lambs were born the previous February, and then I had various weights throughout the year. But I helped collect the saliva samples and faecal samples. So for the saliva, it was a dental swab that we inserted in their mouth, and then the faecal samples, it was just an individual grab sample. For the repeatability, on a group scale, it was really encouraging, much more repeatable compared to FEC. On an individual level, still quite a lot of variation, so there needs to be some work done to understand why that is. But encouragingly, we found those sheep with high saliva antibody levels, so assuming that they are more naturally resistant to worms, they had greater growth rates. So yeah, that's really encouraging. I'm going to be a shepherdess, so for me it was a way of sort of challenging my current knowledge and being able to put or think about a potentially future indicator or breeding value and be able to understand that and be able to implement it sort of as soon as it's out there, if you like. And then for the industry, there is a breeding value for fecal egg counts, but it's not very heritable and it's very variable. So it's quite important, I think, to be able to look at different alternatives, to be able to breed sheep that have their own resistance to worms, so we don't have to rely on anthelmintics and have all the problems with resistance that's a major concern.
I'm Harry Dunford and I'm studying Agriculture and Farm Business Management in my final year at Harper. I chose to do my dissertation on the importance of succession planning on family farms in the UK. It was a subject which I'd covered through my course in various modules. It was also prominent at home, coming from a family farm, and throughout my placement year it was something that was also touched upon. So it kind of tied all three of those together to form a subject that I wanted to look into for my dissertation. My dissertation was survey-based, so I started off by carrying out a literature review, which involved tying together all the research from previous researchers, all of their thoughts, everything they'd found out. Once I'd done that, you could establish a gap and areas that you wanted to explore further, which is when I did a questionnaire, which I launched online to as many farmers as I could in the UK. In the end, I got 110 responses, which I was really pleased with, and that helped me kind of build a good set of results, which I could then analyse and draw some conclusions from. After I sent out the questionnaire, there was an option to take part in semi-structured interviews. So I chose 4 farmers from the original questionnaires who all had different views on succession planning, different circumstances at home. I was then able to speak to them. 2 of them I did face-to-face and 2 on the telephone to get a far more detailed kind of insight into the issues they faced, the challenges, areas which they felt were important in the succession process, and what they're thinking of doing in the future. One of them had no children, so that was quite interesting to hear what they were thinking, whereas others had several, and that was quite a key issue. And so I could just get a far more detailed and well-rounded set of ideas to do my conclusions on. In the end, I found that succession is definitely a prominent issue in agriculture at the moment. There's some key reasons behind it, being increases in land values in the last 20 years. I mean, historically, family farms were quite likely to be passed down to the eldest son or the most interested child, whereas nowadays that's not really the case given what everything's worth, which is understandable. Also, I highlighted there's quite a blurred view between succession being the transfer of assets, which is actually inheritance, or the succession being the transfer of management control of the farming business. That was something which other researchers have picked up on, and was a clear trend throughout all of my research as well, which almost makes the problem harder because it tends to get rolled all into one process, which is far harder to do than splitting it down into management, then deciding on assets. There are also some key themes which have been picked up on, how farmers have a tendency to delay retirement or avoid retiring, which can often make the process a bit harder as they feel once they've passed on control or passed on assets to the next generation, they're almost left redundant with not much of a role. So that creates quite a key issue. Another one which is becoming more and more prominent was the issue of potential conflict between family members, given that it's such a close kind of important subject and so many farming businesses are family farming businesses. That's quite critical, and it's definitely a key reason why people delay the succession planning process. Back at home, our family kind of farming business revolves around my dad and his brother. I've also got siblings and cousins, so succession is quite a key area of discussion between us as a family. I think being aware of the issues and the things that stop people planning is quite important, because you are conscious of them and you try and make sure that you don't fall into the same traps. So I think between Dad and my uncle looking at it, they're quite interested as to what the results were and how different families choose to kind of pass things down to the various generations.
My name's Emma and I'm studying BSc Agriculture. I decided to study heat stress in dairy cattle and how it affects the fertility for my HRP. I chose my HRP title whilst on placement. We were seeing that heat was impacting the dairy cattle on one of the farms, and we wanted to see when in the reproductive cycle it was affecting the cows. The method for the project was we put some data loggers in the shed last April. We used those right until December and then recorded all the temperature and humidity data for the shed, because this is what the cows are experiencing, and then put it into Excel and worked out when the cows were affected by the heat. We found out cows were affected 40 days before, 10 days before, and 10 days after, and 30 days after insemination by heat and humidity in the shed, which we were quite surprised at, because in the UK it's not really recognised whether heat stress was impacting the cattle. So yeah, it was interesting to know that maybe there should be more research done on this. Hopefully they're going to put in some fans and maybe look at some sprinklers to try and cool the cows down. So this will be a really nice outcome for the project. And then maybe look at some more farms and see whether they're also affected by heat stress. It's brilliant to do a project that has an impact in the industry, because you really get to focus on something you like, and then you can see where it's going to go to in the future. And hopefully this will carry on and there'll be more research done in the area. I'm going back to work for the company, and so we're going to look at more farms, hopefully expand the study so we can get more of an idea of how heat stress impacts more herds rather than just the one we looked at.